Welcome everyone to today's webinar. Just a couple of quick notes before we go ahead and get started. Everybody is muted, so if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to type them into the questions pane there. We will handle all questions at the end, but again, just feel free to type those in as we have them. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kathy.
Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. This is Kathy LaPlante. I'm a Senior Program Officer at the National Main Street Center and also the Director of Coordinating Program Services. So my job is to travel all over the country and work with the various coordinating programs that we have as well. So we're getting ready for round two to bring Illinois Main Street communities into the Illinois Main Street program. This is a fairly short presentation, but we do want to be able to answer any questions that you might have today. So Steve, I'm trying to advance the slides, but my thing is not advancing them.
Let me try, because you're in here twice, Kathy, so let me try your other one. And see
okay.
That one. Let's see. Now do you have it?
No, but if you want to just go to the next slide, that would be okay.
I think it worked, because I think you advanced it, so you should be good.
I'm still looking at the title slide, though. Oh, there we go. Thank you. All right. So sorry for that interruption. Here are the topics that we're going to talk about today. We have a couple of our staff members online, and they'll introduce themselves, as well as a couple of the Illinois executive directors who are in the program now. So we'll talk about that in participants. We'll talk about the advisory group that we have set up with our Illinois Main Street community partners. And then we'll talk about the benefits of your cities joining our program, what you'll get out of it, what the costs are, and we'll talk about what the application process is, and also some expectations we have on the other end that we have of you to participate in the program, like submitting your reinvestment stats and then some of the visits that we'll provide to you. And as Steve said, we'll take Q&A. You can enter those on in the chat box feature. So hopefully we will answer all of your questions by the end of this. And now I'm going to turn it over to Hannah to run through a couple slides.
All right, thanks, Kathy. So this is Hannah White. I'm the Director of Outreach and Engagement with the National Main Street Center, and I've been working closely with the Illinois Main Street communities in this first year of sort of the newly reconstituted Illinois Main Street program. And wanted to provide a background of sort of how we got to where we are today. And I know many of you who are joining us have been a part of the program at one time, but we have some new communities joining us today as well. So we wanted to just bring you up to speed on sort of how we got to the current organizational structure. And so Illinois Main Street was initially, championed by Lieutenant Governor Bob Kustra over 25 years ago, and for many years, it was one of the strongest statewide coordinating programs in the country. IMS provided technical assistance and trainings and grants and hosted conferences and created a very strong statewide network of Main Street programs, many of whom are still participating today. But over the years, as many of you know, the program also experienced some instability, bouncing around to different departments within the state and experiencing budget cuts with changing administrations. And ultimately, in 2015, IMS lost its sole staff person and all funding. And that really brings us to where we are today. So since 2015, the National Main Street Center has worked with a cohort of Illinois Main Street communities to find a suitable home for the program. Over the last few years, we've had talks with a number of different nonprofits and institutions, and ultimately came to the decision that managing the program directly from national, was the best course of action at this time. And fortunately, we were able to secure some startup funding from the Richard H. Driehaus Foundation here in Chicago, which has given us a solid foundation to build from. And in the first year of this newly reconstituted Illinois Main Street, we had 15 communities participate with us, and we're looking forward to building that base of members in the coming years. And I also just say, in terms of where we're going, we're continuing to fundraise for the program to build capacity. And we've also had a series of conversations recently with the state. So, with the new administration, it seems like there's renewed interest in supporting Illinois Main Street in some way. So we've had conversations with the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, as well as the Lieutenant Governor's office, about how they might be able to support the program. And I'd say we're still in very early days of those discussions, but they've been quite positive, and so we're hopeful that there will be renewed support from the state in the coming years. And so, as I mentioned, we currently have 15 Illinois Main Street communities across the state. And as you can see from this list, we've got a good bit of diversity in terms of geography and community size, as well as age of programs. So, some of our communities have been around since IMS's early days, and some are newer. So really, for prospective communities looking at joining the program, you have a good chance of finding a Main Street program that looks like you, whether it's similar experience, similar size, demographics, as well as a variety of levels of expertise to draw from. Speaking of expertise, I also wanted to introduce you to our advisory committee. So as Kathy mentioned, last year we formed a volunteer advisory group of executive directors of current Main Street programs. And this group really helped guide us through the relaunch of the Illinois Main Street program. And this team, Megan from Carbondale, Jana from Sterling, Diana from Crystal Lake, and Judy from Jacksonville, have provided insights on training topics and workshops, and helped with outreach, and have provided feedback on how we at National can improve our support to and communications with members. So they've been really instrumental in our early momentum here. So wanted to give a big thank you to this group, a few of whom are here with us today on this webinar. And I did also want to just take this time to open up the floor to see if any of our advisory members wanted to talk a bit about their experience with the program.
Hi, this is Jana. Grow Herring. I'm the director here in Sterling. I just kind of wanted to share. Of the four of us that serve on this advisory committee, I'm the newest director. I've been here in Sterling for 6 years. Our program is just a little over 10 years. And when I came into the program, it was kind of what I would call the beginning of the end of what was the existing Illinois program under the state. So having these new services provided through National directly has been a great asset to me. From a new director standpoint, I had received my new director training, and that was really about it, other than a couple of conferences and through the one staff person. So once we were able to hook up with National a year ago and restart this Illinois Main Street program, just the access to information and quarterly workshops and just having somebody to email with a question has really been super beneficial in continuing to move our program forward.
I'm Judy from Jacksonville, and our program is in our 20th year. I've been here 18 years. I'm the second longest serving director in Illinois, Diana Kenny being the longest serving director. And I came in when the program was at its very strongest. Over the course of my tenure, I've actually seen this program disappear from the state, I think 6 different times, and then be resurrected again under completely new leadership at the state level. And then, of course, when it completely disappeared. The services in the early days were absolutely phenomenal. I don't know that we'll ever get back to that level. That would be a dream of dreams. However, I can tell you that being affiliated with a state program and the national program gives our organization a lot of credibility. There's a lot of nonprofit organizations out there, and everybody's, doing great things. But when you are affiliated with something that's larger than yourself and beyond yourself, my board feels very strongly, and our community feels very strongly, that it's important. It gives credence to what we do. There is a support network, and if you do run into problems, you have easy access to a variety of people. I mean, literally at the click of a computer button, that you can reach out and try to find answers to your problems. We are trying to work very closely with the new state program to enhance those services, and they're open to all of our suggestions from the advisory committee. They've worked with us to find out what kinds of things that we as communities at different levels of maturity are looking for. And obviously there's stuff for new organizations, but there's also a lot of resources for existing organizations, and those are extremely valuable. We would not, I can tell you unequivocally, we would not be able to as easily do what we do without support from other people. You know that on a local level, you rely on volunteers, and it's the same at a management level, that you need other people to rely on and to work with for resources, ideas, all of the above.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, both Jana and Judy. I think that was really helpful, and both of them will be sticking around for the Q&A portion at the end of the webinar as well. If you have any sort of specific questions about the member experience or anything that they mentioned there. And with that, I will turn the floor back over to Kathy to walk through the benefits that you'd be getting with IMS membership.
Great. Thanks a lot, Hannah. And thanks, Jan and Judy. I'm sure that was helpful for everybody to hear from some folks that have been in the program with us this last year. These are the member benefits for any of the communities that are going to be selected to join us this year. It costs $2,000 is your membership fee. What you get is a 1-year membership to Main Street America, which if you visit our website, you would understand that involves a lot of great benefits, from being able to participate in our sort of listserv that we call The Point. You can gain great ideas from people all over the country, share your successes through that. You get our annual State of Maine publication. You get discounts to come to conferences, to the Main Street America Professional Development Institute. All our online publications are free, where you'll find our downtown revitalization handbooks, our board and committee member handbooks. Many of our guides and our toolkits are available there. We think we have a really great resource for you to take advantage of through that membership. You'll also have a licensing agreement with us, in which we give you the trademarks to the Main Street America brand. So I think both Jan and Judy had mentioned being part of this greater network adds a lot to your local program efforts, instead of being seen as sort of a local nonprofit. You're part of a statewide program, the Illinois Main Street, but you're also part of the national Main Street network. And so that licensing agreement gives you the authority to use our brand as part of your education and marketing efforts. In the first year, and what we have done with our communities so far is that we have at least 2 visits that we do to each community. One is your program assessment visit, where we sort of visit at the end of the year, do a check-in with how you're doing on your work plan. We meet with your board and committees, and often take the time to meet with your elected officials to let them know that Illinois Main Street and National Main Street are in town. And then we also provide a technical assistance visit, and that one is sometimes determined when we do the program assessment visit, and we've provided technical assistance visits on developing the downtown marketing or overall strategies for it, or transformation strategies. We've done fundraising visits. We've done volunteer development. It can really range the gamut. It is for us to sort of work with you and decide what is the greatest need. Is it more training for your board, or is it to address a specific issue in your community? So that technical assistance visit is really a topic that we decide or choose with you. As they mentioned as well, we do 3 statewide quarterly training workshops, and that's what the advisory council helps us decide what are the things that most of the communities need, or what's the hot topic that everybody needs additional training in. Those visits move around the state. We try to hold them in 3 different locations. One is generally held in Chicago each year, which is where our offices are. You get a registration also to the Main Street Now conference. Our conference in 2020 will be held in Dallas, so that'll be a lot of fun. And then the other piece, which is noted there, is the phone consultation and coaching is needed. One of the lessons that we learned through this first year is that we're assigning our staff members to each community, so everybody has a point of contact. So somebody's struggling with a board issue or getting funding from the city and wants some support, that's what we're there for. So we act as the coordinating program, and you have access to us through email, through voicemail, through any kind of coaching that you might need. So that is available to you as needed. And then we also do at least 2 webinars a year that are dedicated to the Illinois Main Street communities. Again, as part of your benefits and your Main Street America membership, we do other webinars throughout the year, but we'll have 2 specifically to the Illinois Main Street communities. The value of all these benefits is a minimum of $7,000. So your $2,000 membership fee just helps to offset a little bit of that cost, but you get a great bunch of information, technical assistance from us as part of that. When we come in to do, can somebody advance it? It's not working on my end. We measure, when we come in to do the program review, we often look at, or we do look at, how you stand up against the accreditation criteria. So every year, all our coordinating programs across the country decide or determine whether or not communities have met these standards. And we know that communities that follow these standards are the ones that make the greatest progress in their revitalization efforts. So these are what we call the 10 criteria. Over the next 2 years, we're going to be tweaking them a little bit and getting them down to about 6 criteria. But really what we're looking for with your communities is that you show us you have broad-based public-private support for the program. Ideally, we like to see that cities are funding some part of their Main Street programs. We definitely look for their philosophical support for Main Street, but Main Street programs and downtown revitalization isn't going to be successful if we don't have a public and private partnership. We want the private sector involved as well. We need to see vision and mission statements. If those are things that a community doesn't have, we can help a community develop those. You need to have a comprehensive Main Street work plan that shows you're doing work across the 4 points of Main Street, which are organization, design, promotion, and economic vitality. So we want to have that detailed written work plan so that we can come in at that program review and you can hand us a document that says, here are the 20 projects and the details that we've worked on over the last year, and that we see it's working towards a comprehensive overall economic strategy for downtown. You need to possess a historic preservation ethic, that we're saving more buildings that we're tearing down and doing things like having facade grant programs, doing preservation education. This is National Preservation Month, so what are we doing to inform people about the great history in the architecture we have in our communities? You have to have an active board of directors and committees. The board definitely needs to be meeting on a monthly basis. Committees might meet ad hoc. You might even have, instead of the 4 Main Street committees, you might have project committees. That works for us as well. You have to have an adequate operating budget. Typically for smaller communities, I don't have the numbers right off the top of my head, but I would always say that any community probably above 5,000 people should really have somewhere between a $75,000 and $150,000 operating budget. But we just want to know that you have enough money to pay professional staff and to operate your program. The next point is having a paid program manager or executive director, whether part-time communities, if you're under 5,000, that position can be part-time. We look for it to be full-time for communities over 5,000. You also have to commit to a program of ongoing training for staff and volunteers. And that is not just for the executive director. So when we do workshops, we'd like you to, bring in a volunteer or a board member or committee member with you, or if you're listening in on webinars, it's always great if we're, say, for example, doing a promotion webinar, that you bring in your promotion committee and all watch it together and save 15 minutes at the end to discuss how it might impact things for your community. The other part is you might take advantage of other trainings that are going on in the state of Illinois, and those all count as well. We just want your communities to keep up to date on what's happening in downtown revitalization. Reporting of key statistics, we're going to have Steve talk a little bit about that, but that's how we measure the progress of each community. What's your net gain in new businesses, new jobs? How much has been reinvested by the public and private sectors in your community? And then, of course, our last criteria is that you need to be a current member of Main Street America, which is included in the dues you're going to pay. So that's an easy one to check off the list. So those are our criteria currently. As I said, we're revising them a little bit, but they're going to broadly be about the same categories as well. So now I'm going to turn it over to Steve to talk about the application process and those reinvestment stats.
Great, thank you, Kathy. My name's Steve Amron. I'm the manager of network services at the Main Street Center. And kind of Hannah and I are kind of your primary in-office contacts, for any questions. And then, as Kathy mentioned, herself and there's 4 other field service team members who kind of provide the more, the technical visits and, kind of answer those more programmatic technical questions. So just to run through a little bit of the application process and the timeline, the application will open this Friday, May 10th. And is due about a month later, Monday, June 10th at midnight Central Time. The application is going to cover 5 key areas. The applicant and community profile. So I'll just talk, a little bit about your organization, the demographics of your community, and other things along those lines. The downtown profile. That's going to talk, a little bit about your some of your largest employers in the, in the community, and that's also where we're going to kind of establish those initial reinvestment stats. So we'll ask questions along the lines of, how many current employees are within the district, how many businesses are there within the district, and other questions related to the reinvestment stats. And then we have the program goals, which are just asking a little bit about, kind of why you're looking to join, the Main Street program, and what are you, looking to get out of it. And then finally, just community readiness. And I understand some folks may have issues seeing the slides, so hopefully that advanced it. They're right on my end. So, and then finally, supplemental documents. So we'll ask for some photos of your downtown. We'll ask for a current list of your board of directors. We'll ask for your last year's operating budget. I think those are the key areas under the supplemental documents there. And then you'll be notified by Friday, June 21st, as to whether or not you were accepted into the program. And then if accepted, you'll sign a membership agreement. And as Kathy mentioned, the dues for the 2019-2020 calendar year are $2,000. Which will cover your membership will be active basically July 1st of this year through the end of June of 2020. So that's the cycle we have the Illinois programs on, our July 1 to June 30 cycle. And then a key thing that we get quite a few questions on is if you are accepted into the program, you would not need to apply for future years so long as you maintain an active status within Illinois Main Street. So if, you decided, after a couple of years, you weren't going to, be part of the program, but then, a year or two later wanted to come back, you would have to go through that application process again. But again, as long as you maintain a current active status continuously, you will not need to reapply. And then if there's any questions you have on the application as you're working through it, please feel free to email the Illinois Main Street at savingplaces.org. That'll ensure kind of the quickest answers there. And we're certainly happy to help you with any questions you may have related to the application, or help you understand other pieces of it. So I'll give it a second in case there's a lag, but the next piece I want to touch on a little bit was the reinvestment statistics, which, as Kathy mentioned, to be an accredited, this is a requirement to be an accredited Main Street program, but really to be part of Illinois Main Street, this is a requirement generally overall. So the statistics are collected quarterly, and they're due basically the 15th of the following month at the end of the quarter. So you have some dates there. Again, these are emailed to Illinois Main Street at savingplaces.org, and we basically email out a spreadsheet, that you fill in and then return to us to collect the stats. So running through the stats that we collect, it's the full-time net jobs created within the district, or net part-time job creation in the district, the net number of new businesses created within the district, how many rehabilitation projects were completed, number of public improvement projects completed, new construction projects completed, the amount of public investment in your district, the amount of private investment, and then finally the volunteer hours contributed. And again, these are collected on a quarterly basis. We do have kind of a glossary of terms that we send out with the stats, which kind of outline what should be counted within each of the categories. So if you're not a little unsure of should we count this, should we not, that glossary of terms will help help answer those questions. And these are really, some people feel like this is a lot of work, which it certainly is, but these really are important for you to take to your to your city or the council and your board, and just kind of demonstrate the impact that that you've made within the community. And oftentimes there are places where you can get if you have a good relationship with your with your city government, a lot of times they'll have whether through building permits or other things, they'll have a lot of these numbers probably for you already. So just kind of making those relationships and where you can get the numbers. So with that, that takes us to the end of our formal presentation part. So we can open it up for questions. And again, Jana and Judy both are still on. So if you have questions, kind of for current programs as well, I'm sure they would be happy to answer those. And then any, kind of technical or Illinois Main Street related questions, we are certainly happy to answer. So So again, there should be a questions tab there. So feel free to type in your questions, and we can answer those. And we do have one. Will the presentation be available as a link or to download following the webinar? It will be. So I believe about 24 hours after the conclusion of this webinar, the whole thing was recorded. So you should basically receive a link to that recording. Again, it usually goes out about 24 hours after the conclusion of the webinar. So if you don't see it, again, feel free to email us, Illinois Main Street at savingplaces.org, and we can share that. But it should certainly be available. So yeah.
I also want to remind everybody that the fee to be part of Illinois Main Street also includes National Main Street membership as well.
Correct. Yes. Thank you for that, Judy. Yeah. So really, you get your National Main Street Center dues, which are they're actually going up to $375 July 1, and then you also get a free conference registration, which is generally around $400. So you're almost getting $700 of that membership back through through those two pieces. Can Main Street be part of an existing chamber operations or business development organizations, or does it need to be its own entity? Kathy, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, we're the organizational formation of where the Main Street program is, we're very flexible. I think if we're looking at your organization being part of another entity, is just to make sure there is a Main Street board that is dedicated to making decisions for the downtown. But we have Main Street programs that are housed in city government, in chambers of commerce as standalone 501c3 or 501c6 organizations. I think the cool thing about the Main Street program is that it is flexible. We're just wanting to make sure that Main Street isn't just seen as perhaps a project of another entity, but that there is a board of directors for Main Street, and it is that board of directors that oversees the staff person who will be running the program. So I hope that answers your question.
Great.
As I say, this is Jana. One of the things I was going to. Okay.
I was going to say, go ahead.
All right, sorry. One of the when Kathy was talking about some of the benefits, she'd mentioned the Point, which is the listserv, basically through the National Main Street website. One of the other things that we have, kind of as an unofficial benefit, would be that we, us directors here in the state of Illinois, we have 2 Facebook groups where we do a lot of communicating amongst ourselves. That would be open to anybody who would join the new program as well. We've got one that's just our directors only, just your executive director, top level staff, where we communicate behind the scenes as far as what's going on in our communities, good sounding board for each other for some, for general support. And then we also have a resource group that has executive directors, staff members, board members, volunteers can use just as an Illinois only resource where we do a lot of communicating behind the scenes and just sharing resources and ideas and answering each other's questions as well.
Hey, Jana, we have a couple, the Chamber Main Street thing has spurred a handful of questions here. Let me see. Could you give an example of a town that has a Main Street as part of Chamber?
Dixon, Illinois currently has a merged organization that is Chamber, Main Street, and their tourism are all under one umbrella.
Yeah. And Kathy, I'm sure you probably have a handful of other examples as well.
Yeah, and it's mainly, I think, where I see it most often in small communities. I'm thinking of Brush, Colorado is another one where Main Street was in the chamber office, and then when the chamber exec left, the Main Street director took over both the chamber role and the Main Street role. So it seems to work real well in very small towns. I think in larger towns, because there's so much work, and maybe I'll emphasize that there's so much work to do in most downtowns. It's difficult for it to be a split position. I know, when I ran the New Hampshire Main Street program, I had towns under 5,000 that could have a part-time person, and even they would wait until they raised enough money so that that person would be full-time, because what we see in Main Street is often our full-time people are working 50 to 60 hours a week, and then the part-time people, they're getting paid for 25 hours a week, but they're working well more than that. So keep in mind that this isn't just, we have somebody who has 10 hours, they can be the Main Street person. That's not going to work. It really is a position that needs to be dedicated to downtown. And I always like to say, it's great to have somebody whose everyday job, the only thing they're worrying about is the betterment of your downtown. So hopefully you can keep that in mind. Sometimes it takes a little more work in fundraising to make sure that is a position that can be full-time, or I know, under 5,000, it can be a part-time position, but I always strive to encourage communities to make that at least 25 hours a week, not just 20 hours a week, because they do put in so much time.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. And there was a follow-up question to that. Is it possible for a chamber executive director to handle the dual role as the Main Street director, which I think you kind of answered, but I don't know if you want to expand on it anymore. I think you covered it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, work very well in communities more than 5,000 in population. Again, I think when you get into this program, you find out just how much there is yet to do in downtown, but it might depend on I always ask chambers what is the chamber role in the community. When I was a local executive director, our chamber did industrial development. They leased all the land in our industrial park, and they dabbled a little bit in tourism. So they really had no focus in downtown whatsoever, except that they had business members in downtown. So Main Street and the chamber had very clear roles. In some instances, I do see that chambers are the ones that are running all the events downtown, and they're doing the marketing, the tourism piece for downtown. So it's kind of dependent on each community. But I wouldn't say that if you've been a full-time chamber executive director and now you're going to say you'll be the Main Street person without adding any time or salary to that, I don't think that would work. You can't have a full-time job and then take on another full-time job. Hopefully we'd see additional staff being hired for that Main Street position. But again, it will depend on the size of your community, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody one-on-one as well if they want to reach out to me and talk about your particular situation.
Great. Thank you,
Kathy. The biggest difference you have to remember is
go ahead,
that, the biggest difference between the chamber and us, and I think other chambers work similarly, they're member-based. So their services are provided to paying members, where Main Street is more of a geographical nonprofit, and the services are for everybody within that geographic area. So you're really wearing two different hats, and you have to have a different mindset. If you can switch hats really, really well, then you could probably do it. But you just have to remember that there's differences, and there's differences in the focus.
Good point, Judy. Thank you.
Most couple reinvestment statistic questions. Are the statistics from other communities shared with all so we can compare our progress? We generally don't share individual statistics. I guess probably one key reason for that is, obviously every community is a different size, different Main Street, the districts, both community size being different and also the district size being different. So we generally have not shared, those kind of individual statistics. But I will say we do obviously share our national statistics. So we calculate the reinvestment stats for all about 1,100 active Main Streets throughout the country, and we share those. Annually. They're revealed at the conference. Then, is there a history of statistics we can access? We have a cumulative total of all the reinvestment stats, and then we also have pretty much the reinvestment stats for the history of kind of the Illinois program. So I guess yes and yes to that. I guess maybe Jen or Judy, I don't know if you want to take this, or Kathy. In my community, we have a large downtown and had reluctance to share much of the required information from the business and property ownership community, which is a limiting factor for meeting the requirements. Do you have advice for overcoming this?
Well, part of what Steve just said is that advice is that their names are not shared. I mean, I keep track, so I just know that I already reported that number. But as far as sharing their information, their names don't go along with that. It's just general information that we share with the state, and the state doesn't collect the names and the numbers specifically to each business. So they're not going to get in trouble with taxes and whatever if they've got whatever their concern is. The state does not collect specific information for each, business information. It's just the general numbers of, did they hire 2 full-time people? That's it.
Yes, good.
Yeah, and maybe they're asking about just collecting that information, which can be sometimes challenging, right? So you see somebody putting on a new roof, and maybe either nobody wants to ask them how much that new roof cost. You could estimate it yourselves. I always had some contractors, if somebody put up a new sign, but they didn't want to tell me how much they paid for it, I'd have somebody on my design committee estimate what they thought the value of that sign was. And so it's always best to be conservative in sort of those reinvestment numbers. The other is to have a good relationship going with your city offices. So when building permits are taken out, they might notify you, and you can just use the dollar totals off of that information. But Judy is right. The reinvestment numbers are used in a cumulative sense only, and that we can, any community at the end of the year can say they had a, net business gain of 6 new businesses and 50 new employees, and the public reinvested $1 million and the private sector reinvested $2 million. It doesn't point to any particular property or business owner. Now, you might want to, in the future, like we always want to know if our events and festivals and, the girls' night out stroll was a success, is we also like to ask some of our retail and service businesses how they did for sales. And again, that's developing relationships locally, and just, they don't have to give you a dollar amount, but if they can tell you I had a 10% increase or I was down 20%, you just take that into account so that you can better assess how your events and festivals are working. A lot of that relationship, though, develops through the Main Street Executive Director and hopefully builds up that confidence with building owners and property owners and business owners.
And Kathy's right, that does take time to do. I also have, I'm on a list where I get a monthly report from the building department on permits issued. So they just automatically send me out at the end of the month all the different building permits. And, that's probably about as honest of a number as you're going to get. And that people are fudging it a little bit so they don't have to pay as much for the building permit.
Yeah, I agree with Judy. I get a report from our city building department at the end of the month that gives me those numbers for as far as building permits, as far as improvements and stuff that have been made. And, also just building the relationships with your downtown business owners, just assuring them, we're not sharing business specific. Hey, we just see you're growing, you're adding jobs. We just want to show, the good things that are happening in our town. And, while we're not going to say it's your business that's doing this, but hey, our downtown, area, we've gotten 10 new jobs this month because businesses are expanding here or adding here or coming here or whatnot.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and just to kind of close the loop on that. So yeah, when communities report up to us, we don't need, we don't currently ask for any backup or say these are the 6 new businesses we had, these are where the new employees were. Obviously, if anything looks, out of whack or looks, different, we may come back and just say, can you expand on this or just double check and make sure this number is right. But yeah, all you would report up to us is the net totals. We don't need to see, basically how you got there. So we didn't have any other questions, but we still have about 14 minutes. So if folks still have questions, feel free. I guess Kathy, Hannah, Judy, Jana, I don't know if you guys have any kind of other remarks or comments you wanted to make.
I would just say, Steve, too, for everybody to, for those that are not as familiar with Main Street, certainly go to our website at www.mainstreet.org and look at all the stuff that we have available on our website. Our program went through what we call a refresh about 5 years ago. So there's so much more new material since the Illinois Main Street program existed in its previous form. And I think a lot of that is evident in all the publications and toolkits that we have. That I think this is an exciting time to be part of our program, and just hope we get a lot more cool communities to join us this year.
I would just say, on the slide that they've got up, they've got the contact information for Illinois Main Street. Just Steve, Hannah, whoever, if you would want to talk to any of us currently in the Illinois program directly, feel free to just reach out to us directly as well.
Great, thank you for that. I can send a follow-up email to folks who registered, and Jan and Jude, if you guys don't mind, I can share your email addresses.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, perfect. Good. Well, we don't have any other questions. So again, if folks have, any questions, feel free to email us, Illinois Main Street at savingplaces.org. As Kathy mentioned, our website's mainstreet.org, but we also do have a dedicated Illinois Main Street website as well. And hopefully you can see the slide. It's just ilmainstreet.org. So there's, a lot of the information you saw here, a list of the communities, upcoming trainings, et cetera, are listed there. And again, this webinar was recorded, so you should receive, within about 24 hours after this, you should receive a link with a recording of the webinar. And then again, I'll send a follow-up email with the contact information for Judy and Jana, and feel free to reach out to them if you have any other, kind of questions, about Illinois Main Street that, more programmatic related. So. Just want to thank everyone for joining today, and hopefully we'll see applications from everyone. So, and thank you to Judy and Jana for taking time and joining us and sharing your insights into the program. So,
great, thanks, Steve.
All right,
thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye everyone.